So the Whitebeard Pirates get another crew member in OP03 for the One Piece card game, and that's Ace. He's another red leader that utilizes event cards in a different way than any other leader that we have right now. He has access to all of the red good stuff and caters towards a lot of the Whitebeard Pirates, and albeit that we do have the Moby Dick ban, it's okay. I think he's still pretty good. This video is actually a beginner guide, which is the same or similar to all of the videos that I've been putting out and the future ones as well. It breaks down any of the cards that you might need to know for the archetype and the leader, some turn-by-turn suggestions, a deck list that I've been personally testing out, and some final thoughts on the leader in the deck. At any time, you can also go down below for the video chapters if you want to skip through, or if there's a section that's a little bit more important for you. But let me know in the comments below if you want to see anything as far as another beginner guide or breakdown, gameplay, whatever it may be. Ace as a leader is actually pretty good and straightforward. You know, it's not like too complicated, but it does open up a few avenues that you might not have for any other leader. And he is pretty versatile and rewards good decision making. Ace is pretty straightforward, but gives you some good versatility as a leader. And he does also reward good decision making and as well as deck building. Him as a leader reads, when this leader attacks or is being attacked, you may trash any number of event cards or stage cards from your hand. And for each card you have trashed, you get 1 plus 1,000 power, 1 plus 1,000 power, 1,000 plus power for this leader during the battle. And basically, the way I see Ace is that you have to make the decision if the event card in your hand is good enough to keep or not throughout the game. His static ability basically faces weird or awkward hands that are filled with event cards, and you know you could always attach one Dawn and then swing and then add on to an event card you know you're not going to be using in that matchup and easily go to 7 and just sort of fix that weird number that you might need. And of course that works on defense as well. The other part of this is that your deck is going to be filled up with event cards, which means you're going to have to understand the inherent combos that are going to be presented to you with those event cards and other cards that you might be building with it. There's the classic Otama Jet Pistol, but now you have access to Fire Fist and Flame Emperor and a bunch of other stuff that you may have not been able to do or at least comfortably have in one deck from before. I think Ace's cards for really any deck that you might be building, especially if you're starting out, are going to be two different sections, which is going to be the event cards and as well as the Whitebeard Pirates or character cards. Before we get into the new stuff and the support for this leader, as well as just red in general, there are some really good event cards that we have access to already, which is Radical Beam, which is just silly because it goes in tandem with some of your other Whitebeard Pirate stuff like Marco and being able to revive him and just, you know, having that extra 2k power or having that one open after you use the 9-drop Whitebeard. Those are the things that we've seen before with the Whitebeard Pirate or the Whitebeard leader as well. We do have Seaquake, which is just good in general, especially since you can reduce a lot when it comes down to it. You have access to minus a lot of different things in different situations. Jet Pistol is also very, very good off of life and just in general. It's losing its luster, obviously, because of Whitebeard and Zoro taking over as red decks, but with Ace coming out of OP03, Jet Pistol might get a little bit more play. And then we also have Whitebeard Pirates, which also came out of OP02, which is just really good support in general when it came down to Whitebeard Pirates in general for consistency and as well as just this deck. With the introduction of OP03, you now have something like Flame Emperor, which is a hefty 7 cost, but you can get to pop something that is 8k power or less, and then your leader gets double attack. So you put this with Jet Pistol, or not Jet Pistol, but Otama before the Jet Pistol, but Opama, and then this right after, you can now pop the 9-drop Whitebeard, for instance. But this also is good against yellow, which now you can pop the Big Mom, the 7-drop, and as well as the category secret rare. You can do Odin, the 8-drop, which obviously is a little bit of a downside that they get something for free, but you understand where I'm coming from. We have Crossfire, which is nice because now Crossfire with Flame Emperor, you can basically get rid of most, if not all, things in the game, really, honestly. You can do that with Seaquake, which we've had access to as well, and now you basically can get rid of anything that is 7k or less for 3 Dawn in total. Fire Fist is one of my favorites in general. Yes, you have to pitch a card in order to KO something 5k or less, but you also get another target that is 4k or less, which means it's really good against Zoro or really anything that goes wide, and you can mitigate their board that way. And the trigger is not that bad either. Really, all the triggers for all of these are really good, you know? Being able to pop something 6k or less, and then giving something minus 4k for Crossfire, the list goes on. And of course, we have Guard Point and a few others, but really the point I'm trying to make here is that you already have access to a lot of good things. And what Ace kind of provides for you is the consistency of it, and being able to utilize those things and not be dead in your hand more often than not. Because sometimes you are, like, if you just shove a bunch of event cards into a deck, even if it is red, even if it is a really good deck, a really good leader, it doesn't matter, because sometimes you'll just have 1 or 2 Dawn to play with, and you're not going to be able to use that Crossfire. You're not going to be able to use the Gum Gum Jet Hawk, right? So, or Red Hawk. So I mean, it's things like that you have to consider, and again, is one of the advantages of using Ace in general. All right, let's talk through some of the Whitebeard Pirate stuff that we're going to be playing. And I mean, this is just something, at least the idea for me for this deck is that you want to focus on the Whitebeard Pirates, because you do get the advantages of a few things because of that, but because this is also the same idea of like Nami in my previous video, where you cater towards some of the stuff that makes your deck really consistent, and you can see the things that you need to see when you need to see them. Of course, we have the classic 9-drop Whitebeard, Edward Newgate. He doesn't really go away, in my opinion. I think you still play him. It is a really good card. You're a 7k leader instead of 8 in the other Whitebeard leader, but he is really good going later into the game. The other one that we still have or have had are the 7-drop Ace, which I think is one of the greatest cards in this deck. Just in tandem with the minusing effects, right, where you can minus 2 things that are in rest, you can swing into them, or you can Seaquake them if they're small enough, because you're gonna have that Dawn open if you really need to, and just a 7k swing is just really good with Rush. Then of course we have the Marco blocker, which, I mean, if you ever went against Marco, you'll know that he is very annoying to deal with, and he still is good going into this set. He just gets another copy of himself in the 5 cost, where you can pop something 3k or less on your turn and when you're playing it. And of course, this is something that you'll be playing at 4 because of the on KO effect, because when it gets KO'd, you can trash an event card from your hand, which you're going to have a lot of them, and then play it as rested, which ends up being really good, because sometimes people just swing into it and then they have to commit Dawn, or they have to swing their bigger body into it, and you have a better way of making that decision to pitch a card or defend against it, in the way of, do I want to pitch just one card just to play it again, and them having it to swing into it and preventing something that goes into your life, or do I just want to defend against it, basically? And it just becomes really good and really annoying for your opponent. Is that you'll probably see and probably be playing, at least the ones I play, are going to be the skillless cards, King Do, Thatch, and as well as the 2k counter in Jozo. These guys are all searchable, along with even Vista. You can throw Vista in there if you really want to, but all of these guys are pretty important depending on your play style. Like, if you like playing bigger bodies and just sitting on them and defending afterwards, which I like to do, I think 5/7s, and as well as just King Do in general, is kind of like that really good middle ground when it comes down to that sort of play style. I like just putting this guy out. He is a 7 cost or 7k, which, you know, if you're going against red, Jet Pistol doesn't get there. You have to commit a little bit more. 7k is really good to swing with, and as well as easy to get to 9 to make it really good against other event cards, and as well as just harder to remove or swing into, as far as being easy to defend, right? Like, it's easier to defend a 7 instead of a 5 for your leader, etc. The 6/8 is whatever. It's just that that extra boost. I don't think it's really that much needed, but it is really good if you know they're going to be swinging 9s, because there's one less Don to commit with. Jozu is cool because he is a searchable Whitebeard Pirates. He has that rush, which I don't think you will ever really need to use. I've never ever used him in that way, but it is an option. And then Vista, of course. I don't personally play Vista in this build. I think you could. I just think 3 is a little bit much to do what you want to do, because you have all these other event cards that do these things better, right? I think that's kind of the idea for me. There's a few different ways that you can take this deck. I think the straightforward, play a lot of event cards, put some Whitebeard Pirates, and then any other red spice or like tech pieces that you really want is kind of the thing that you really want to do when you start out and build out this deck. A few things that I did not mention are the lower cost ones, and as well as the thing that goes with it. So first off, we do have a Striker, which is cool. It's basically a 1 that you pay for 2. You look at the top 5, you get an event card, and you place the rest at the bottom, which is basically saying, do you want to pay 2 to maybe get an event card? You know, most of the time, unless you're thinning out your deck a lot, you're gonna get an event card because you know, depending on your deck building and etc. You know, it's not going to be too bad to do that. And the cool thing about Striker is the fact that you can use it as a 1k power on defense or offense using your leader, because it is a stage card and your leader does call for that. So that is something that other leaders can't do, where you might just draw into a stage and you literally cannot use it. You can't do anything with it unless you play it again and then use the activate main again, which is something you don't really want to do. You just want to use the activate main unless you want to see another event card that you need to do. You know what I'm saying. Either way, Striker, and then Izu is another option that comes out of a Pillar of Strength or OPL3. When you look at the top 5, you get a Whitebeard card other than Izu and then add it to your hand, place the rest at the bottom. This is really good because you can search both your event cards and as well as the characters, which is great. I think that is awesome. I think that is pretty much one of the best openers that you can do, and depending on what matchup that you have, that is basically the thing that you need in order to go against that matchup. And finally, Buggy. He is a 1 for 3,000 power. I'm not sure why they printed that with effects along with his static, but his on play is that you look at the top 5, you get a red event card, and then you place at the bottom, the rest of the bottom in any order. This is definitely a staple in this deck. You don't really want to play Buggy any less than 4, because it is something that you again can start out with and search any other event cards that you really need, because they're all going to be red event cards, and you're going to be wanting to get those into your hand for your leader and as well as just in general. Now, those are pretty much all of the archetype based cards that you probably need to know and as well as start to build with. I think, again, there's a handful of cards that I didn't mention, but those are the ones that you should focus on. Now, as far as the turn-by-turn suggestions, I think Ace is a pretty versatile deck, right? I think it's very situational, very reactionary, and I think at the end of the day, I can't give you what is going to be the perfect opening or opener for it, but I can give you something that is very bread and butter and very straightforward. Turn off your brain, just do this for the next three or 4 turns. So turn 1 is going to be Izu or Buggy. You really want to see basically either one of your Marcos or Aces with Izu. You can also get something like Flame Emperor or Whitebeard Pirates. So look at the top 5 and get another character if you like. Buggy, you can get any of your event cards depending on what your build is. You can grab a Radical Beam, a Guard Point. You can grab a Jet Pistol, just depending again on how you want to play the matchup and how you want to react to your opponent. A lot of the time, what I like to do is that if I'm going against something like yellow, I like to grab a Flame Emperor for their 7-drop. If I'm going against their like green, I like to grab a Fire Fist, so that way I can get rid of their Okikus or whatever it may be. If I'm going against the red mirror, then I'll like to get some of those Radical Beams and Guard Points because they're going to be a little bit more aggressive. And as you play and as you go through it, you'll understand a little bit more as you go. Turn 2, if you do have another Buggy or Izu, you can go ahead and just put 2 Dawn on your leader and then just swing, and then play another one of them. Sometimes you really just don't have a turn to play. If you are going second and you're playing the 4/6s, or if you want to play a Marco blocker, then that is going to be the way to go. On 5 Dawn or 6 Dawn, you want to play a Marco if they are playing something on their end. If they played something a little bit bigger than that, then you want to go ahead and use a jet pistol and then just swing with the rest of your Dawn. And I would like to say that if you're on 7 or 8 Dawn on turn 3 or 4, Ace, the 7-drop Ace, is going to be coming down pretty much every single time. The thing about it is that you really want to make sure that they're swinging with their cards first before you swing with your Ace, because what happens is that, sure, you're going to 7 cost, or you set a 7k swing, but at the end of the day, they're just going to put a lot of Dawn on it or just get rid of it by swinging into it, which is not too bad to defend against. But that, in my opinion, I think the better thing is just to wait until they have something in a rest and then use the Ace and then swing into them. That way you clear the board, you have a 7k, and then they're going to be behind. If they don't have anything on in rest, then I suggest using so one of the skillless cards, either the 5/7 or 6/8, right? And then just plant it on there, and then you can use the Ace, and then you can swing with both of those guys. The remainder of the turns really depends on what the matchup is, how the match is going, and what is in your hand for event cards, etc. Again, Edward Newgate is really good if you are at 2 or 3 life, if you're at 1 life, or if you're at a ton of life. I guess it's not too bad if you have a ton of life, but you could play the 9-drop and then just swing, and then now you have a 10k body that they have to take care of. That's pretty much for the turns. Like I said, he's very reactionary, very dependent on what your matchup is and how the match is going, so I can't really give you something that is very concrete, but as you pick up the deck and as you go through it, you'll know what to do. Now finally, let's go through my personal deck list and what I've had success with. So this is my current Ace list, and the thing about Ace, I feel like it's going to be ever changing and kind of versatile, because you know, red event cards are going to be released in future sets, and we have already, like I said before, a good amount of them to access right now. And I think it really still comes down to the core Whitebeard Pirates of the Marcos, the Edward Newgates, the King Dews, the 7-drop Ace, and the Izus, right? And of course, Buggy supports that with all of the searching for event cards. And I think in this, Otama is definitely going to be the 2K of choice. I was running Makino as well, just to take advantage of Buggy, because really it's just a 2 Dawn investment at the end of the day to have a 7k swing, and that's not too bad. Because those buggies kind of just sit there otherwise, and while you do end up investing 2 Dawn to get a 5, you may as well just go ahead and get the 2 and have a 2 cost a 2k counter in your hand as well. I do play 2 of the Flame Emperor. I was playing at 3. The skill of the trigger popping a 6k or less is actually really nice. It's just another jet pistol, but jet pistol ended up just being better in your hand. Just because in certain matchups, like, I don't know, anything green, sometimes red, any of the bigger skill lists, blue especially for sure, and things like that, it just ended up being pretty well. I also took out Crossfire in I would say, not in replacement, but in consideration for Fire Fist. I really like Fire Fist, and I think if you wanted to play both, you can get rid of the 1-cost Whitebeard Pirates Searcher, but it is just a 1k in your hand at the end of the day, and as well as a Searcher, and it also triggers for free off your life, which just gets you a card just before it gets back to your turn. So effectively just drawing you 2 cards basically. Well, I guess you do draw 2 cards if you take a life and then draw afterwards, but I guess you draw a card that you knew that you probably needed or wanted in the Whitebeard Pirates anyway from that trigger. But overall, I think you do play more Radical Beams than guard points. You end up just being at 2 life for the majority of the game for the Marco ability, and as well as for Radical Beam. And then from there, you just kind of defend. And if you can get to 3 life and then just put down Newgate, that's going to be a really, really good position to be in. I don't think you play more than 2 Newgates, by the way. I don't think it's as important in this deck as it is in the actual Edward Newgate leader, just simply because like you're a 7k leader, and I feel like you can do more with your Dawn overall in this leader than others. And I think, again, at the end of the day, what's going to change in this deck as you take this list and make it your own is going to be those event cards. Most of the other stuff is going to be mostly fine. I think, I don't know if you play the 5-drop Luffy to get around blockers. I don't know if you play any of the other rush cards like Zoro. You know, there's a bunch of red builds and just red tech that you can take advantage of. But I think as a basis, as something you need to start out with, or should start out with, is going to be this list. All right, so my final thoughts on Ace. I think red event cards are really good. there's not really a bad red event card. Like in every situation, they can be very useful. And I think Ace is the best leader to utilize those. Like obviously we have Zoro, who now uses some of those red event cards because of Buggy being a 1/3. The Whitebeard is really good just in general because you can just stack in radical beams and guard points. Luffy is just a good all-arounder, and now for Ace, he just gets to use them in a different way than everybody else because of his permanent. Honestly, because if you can do the math right, you can basically remove anything if your hand calls for it, which is just a big plus for this guy. The deck is very consistent as well because of all the searches. You have 3 ways to search a lot of different things into your deck or in your deck. Trigger effects are very annoying, which can definitely end the game and swing it into your favor as well. And honestly, both Marcos are super annoying. Some don't play both Marcos. Some people just play the one that pops 3. Some people don't play the blocker Marcos, but I think both of them are really good in a lot of different situations. So some of the cons, I think, like Whitebeard, the 9-drop, and as well as the 7, sometimes just carries the deck. I think if you are more a little more creative, you can add in some of the Rush Luffys or any of the other red cards we've seen in the last 2 sets, and you can just get a little more creative with it. Another downside, speaking of Whitebeard Pirates, is that Whitebeard, the actual leader, just is better. Like just flat out is just better. There's not really much, like Ace is just like a just slight tier just below him, right? And it's just hard to get around. Like he's a 6K leader that draws a lot and just utilizes some of the Whitebeard stuff a little bit better than Ace. And I would also say that the learning curve for this deck is not great. It took me a while to get used to playing the way that Ace wants to get used to, and just saying like, why am I playing this and I'm not playing some other red leader? But I think at the end of the day, because you can utilize the event cards a little bit different than everybody else, like I was saying, and as well as just having Whitebeard Pirates in your leader, is really good. 2 things that I do want to leave you with as far as notes before we end this video is, 1, in the mirror, don't jet pistol. Don't jet pistol ever. Like it just doesn't feel good. The other part of that is that if you do have the Marco that pops something 3K or less, that does trigger on the trigger effect. So let's say on your turn, if you're swinging into like the mirror or something that pops something, it doesn't really matter. If you swing into their life, the trigger pops the Marco, the on-play effect will still happen because you're playing it from the trash. So when you play it from the trash, you end up popping something 3K or less on their field. And that just made a few people quit in the sim when I was testing this. So just to give you a heads up. All right, that's enough talking. Hopefully this guide has given you a little bit to actually start playing Ace. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, like all that other stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.